Hey, this is Seth from the REtipster Blog, and I wanted to share with you a conversation I recently had with an avid reader of the REtipster Blog. His name is Karl James, and he has been working his land investing business for, I think, about a couple of years now. And as you'll see in this conversation, Karl's done a really good job of taking some of the things that I talk about on my blog in terms of the land investing business and really making it his own. That's one of the things I really like about this business is that it's not necessarily a cookie cutter approach. There are things that I talk about that have worked really well for me, but there are other ways to make this business work too. And Karl shares some really unique things that he has done to make this business work for him. And I think you need to hear about it because it's really sage advice from somebody who has been doing lots of deals and doing really well at this business. So let's drop into that conversation, and you can hear more about what he has to say. And stick around because I think you're going to enjoy it. For everybody who's watching, I'm Seth from the REtipster Blog. This is Karl James, and I've known Karl through the internet for I think over a year now. Karl first reached out to me. I don't remember the exact day, but it was quite a while ago. Just letting me know about some of the success he's had with land investing, and I just thought it was really cool because he's done really well at it, and he's a very sharp guy who has a lot of very good contributions to make, and he's an active member of the REtipster Club, and he posts in the forum all the time, and really, I mean, he's even said things that have made me rethink the way I do stuff. So I just thought if anybody we should hear from, it should be Karl, just to kind of hear his experience and how he does things, and what he's been able to make happen through the magic of the land investing business. So, Karl, welcome. Thanks for being part of this. I'm glad you had a chance to talk to me for a few minutes.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Grateful for all that you're doing with the REtipster blog and now the forum, and I'm just blessed to have had some success. I call it luck or bless. I'm happy to give back, particularly to you if I can.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, and I'm really glad you've had some success and have had some good traction with doing this land thing. I'm curious, was land the first real estate thing you decided to do, or have you been doing real estate for a long time, or what's your story? How did you get started?
Before I got started in land, really the only thing I'd been doing had been buying and selling my own house.
Okay.
I worked full time for an oil company. I've moved around a number of times. We've bought and sold 8 houses over a 30-year career in marriage, and that was kind of the extent of my real estate experience. But I began looking at real estate as a way to do kind of one of two things. One is maybe supplemental income from a hobby, and things like golf don't make money; they just cost money, and I'm not good at it anyway. And also maybe something that when I retired, I would have as a way to earn some income, kind of stay actively involved in something that interests me. And I'd spent several years looking at everything from Carlton Sheets programs, the info commercials at night, and researching things on the internet, and really hadn't settled on any one area. I looked at single family, residential and multifamily, and buy and hold, fix and flip, all of that, and hadn't settled in an area, and quite frankly didn't have any focus. Really wasn't until probably Bigger Pockets podcast number 39 that I went, wow, why did I think of that?
Sure.
That sounds cool. And so, really in terms of where I first learned about, or even just kind of let this concept of land soak in, was that podcast. And at the time where the location I worked in, I had about an hour commute each day, so I'd listen to podcasts, and Bigger Pockets was one of my listen to often. Came across, the podcast that you had done there, and I thought, wow, I need to look into that. So I spent quite a bit of time Googling you, quite frankly, any interviews you'd done, and ran across, your blog, and did a lot of reading. And I said, this looks like it might be an area that would be attractive to me, mainly just because, it seemed to have a lower cost of entry, ease of entry seemed to be there,
Sure,
and just not the ongoing maintenance. So maybe a guy that worked full time, and when I say full time, 50, 60-hour weeks, maybe do this thing.
sure.
And so that's what got me interested in it, and decided that's an area I'll just focus on.
No, that is awesome. That Sounds a lot like, how I got interested in it, and a lot of people get interested in it, is the whole, low cost to entry thing, and the fact that you can do it when you're working a full time job. And it's, I know, a lot of what you said there resonated with me, just because I know there's a lot of harder ways to get into real estate, ways that cost a lot more money and a lot more risk. And I'm curious, like when you first got started, because I know some of the things I've heard you say just in our emails over the years. Like I've actually heard some really good ideas from you, just in terms of like how you get properties sold and that kind of thing. And I like the fact that you don't necessarily just stick to what I say and figure, well, if Seth says it, that's the only way it can be done. You're really good at being creative and finding other ways to get these deals done. So I'm just curious, when you got started, did you do direct mail, or what was your first step in like making these first few deals happen?
Well, when I first started, or my first attempt was direct mail. Went out on Agent Pro 247, got a subscription, pulled in a list, mailed probably 60 mailers over a period of 2 or 3 weeks to a county nearby me, and I probably got 5 or 6 fairly positive responses.
Okay.
And in fact, there's 2 properties that I could have bought. And I say could have bought because I could have got a deal done on either one of them. One of them actually put under contract.
Cool.
Could have bought it. And I got cold feet and I backed out.
Sure.
And to this day, I'm kind of embarrassed and ashamed about that. This thing principle based, if I'm going to commit to a contract, I don't want to back out. That's the first deal. And it was an interior parcel. It was about 4.5 acres. Market value was probably 35 to 40 grand. The appraised value was 34. Managed to find the owners in California. Got a contract to buy it for 3 grand, and there was probably 2 to 3 grand in taxes I'd had to pay. And I look back on it, it probably was a reasonable deal. I talked to some of the neighbors before I canceled it, and I actually think they were interested, but I think they were trying to figure out how they bought it correctly versus buy it from me. Interior parcel, if the neighbors aren't going to buy it from me, what I'm going to do with it? And I backed out, and that was probably about 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. Okay. And so I went back and did a little soul searching. Said, if I'm going to do this land thing, I need to do it. I don't need to be jerking people around or something, but saying, hey, I'm going to do a contract and not. And so, what I'd say, though, that first mailing, the response rate was great, probably close to 10%.
Sounds really good.
But I got a couple deals out of it. And looking back now, that first deal I probably could have been in for 6-7 grand. I doubt I could have turned around and sold it for probably 20. It would have been a good deal.
Yeah.
At the time, just hadn't done a land deal, a little concerned about it, hadn't done a deal at all. The other one that I had probably would have been a purchase for under $1,000, $500 or $600 in taxes, and I might have been able to turn around and sell it for 5 or 6. So I could have made money on both of them, I think. I just got cold feet.
Sure.
And so then I decided, well, I'm really going to do this or am I not? So I stepped back a bit and I said, I need to put in place kind of a plan, an action plan. And so I went and had a little conversation with my wife and got her on board, because up until that, kind of told her what I was doing, but and she just let me go. And I said, here's kind of the plan. And then I got a feel for kind of the closing process. So if I got one under contract, what was I going to do next? So I just reached out to a local title company here. It's a title company I use all the time when I do deals. I've built a really good relationship with them. I just called and said, hey, I need to talk to somebody about what it costs to close a land deal. I told them what I was thinking about doing. Got a really nice closer. I've built a great relationship over the last year and a half or so. He just walked me through what the cost would be. And so then I knew if I bought a piece of property, I knew what the taxes and fines were. I knew what the closing cost would be, so I could kind of be all in. And then I just put aside some money, some cash. So this I'm going to risk. If I lose it, I lose it. It's an education, and thought I'd do another mailing or two. But before I did that, I did a deal that I think what I've heard it called is deed snatching.
Okay.
So I was looking at lists from the county, and there was a property I'd kind of followed a bit, and I saw it pop up on the tax sale list, and I thought, I'm going to get this deal. I got to get after it. I can't sit here and wait. Let's go to tax sale. Somebody will get it. And it was the first deal I closed. It was really, really a nice deal. And so, I said, if I want to do it, I need to do it. And so many people that I either email with or talk to on the forum, I think they fall into this trap of just studying this thing to death, trying to find the perfect deal, the perfect angle. And sooner or later, you just got to do it. Doesn't mean you do something that's not sensible. And so I said, I've done all the studying. I'm either going to do a deal or I'm not. And that one was interesting. It was a good deal. I don't know if you're interested in a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear about it.
I managed to find the owner in Florida. I actually found him through Facebook.
Oh, interesting.
And it was, did a lot of Google searching and figured out that, amongst some people's names that kept popping up, there were some that were friends. I said, this has got to be it. Couldn't get a response. But the owner had liked a pawn shop in Florida. I called the pawn shop. I said, hey, do you know how I can get a hold of, and mentioned the name. And they said, well, she's not here right now. Her and her husband own the shop. Her husband's here. Do you want to talk to him? I said, sure I do. I told him why I was calling and asked, and he sounded a little frustrated. He said, that real estate thing's her deal. He said, I don't know anything about it. I said, you have her cell phone number? I said, no, I don't, but I'd like to have it. So I called her. I said, you got a piece of property that's about to go to tax sale. You're going to lose this. Don't know if you know about it or not. She says, yeah, I've been getting notices. I said, I've moved away from there, remarried. I think I'm just going to let it go. She said, if you want to buy it, I'll sell it for cheap. So you know what the next question was, right?
Yeah.
What's cheap? And she said, $10,000. Well, in this area, it was a half-acre lot that, in a subdivision that was beginning to see some life being built out some more. And lots were listed for 75 to 80 grand, similar lots. I said, and then I went and found some comparable sales that were selling for 70 to 75. And I said, this has got to be a good deal.
Yeah.
And so I knew that when I had gotten a hold of her. And when she said 10,000, I paused for just a minute so I didn't just kind of jump all over her or try to pause. I said, I'll take it. The problem was the thing would go to tax sale in about 2.5 weeks, which meant someone else could buy it if I didn't get something done.
Yeah.
And so I got a contract done, and she wasn't really fast getting the contract back. She wasn't slow, but it wasn't top of her priority. Got a contract done, and it had to be just before Thanksgiving. So the week after Thanksgiving, I came back and I talked to the law firm that was doing the tax sale and said, hey, is there a way I can keep this thing from going to sale? And what they told me was that the owner had to pay the taxes and fees, which wasn't exactly correct. I could have paid the taxes, but the law firm wasn't going to accept the court cost and fees from anybody but the owner. And if those don't get paid, it still goes to sell. That's something that occasionally I see folks either on the forum or all talk about going and paying the taxes. I just caution them, make sure you get everything paid, because if the county's been out court cost to go serve notice or anything, they'll still sell the property to get those dollars, even if taxes have been paid. And so I persuaded the lady at the law firm. In fact, she and I have developed a real good relationship now, but I persuaded her to let me pay those fees. And the way I did it, I just showed up at their office with the receipted contract from the title company. I didn't have a contract, but I showed them, this is with title company. We're in the process of closing. And she let me go ahead and pay those costs. I was about $3,000 without having a deal. I had a contract, no deal. So that was a risk there. And I decided I'm going to risk $3,000 on this, so that I would encourage others to do it or not, just straight out. But that kept it from going to tax sale. Deal closed. And I had already began driving around the neighborhood, looking at who was building there, writing down names and numbers of the builders on the signs and the lots that were building, and had contacted several builders. And the day I closed, I got a call back from one of the builders that was really eager to buy it. He was afraid I was scamming him. It was a great deal. and had the title company not closed the office at 5 o'clock that day and instead closed at 5:05, I'd have delivered them my sale contract to this builder the same day we had closed the other sale. And he was, and the contractor was really eager to get the deal closed. He was pushing the title company worse than I was. He was afraid I was going to walk it, and it wasn't going to go through. So we closed in 11 days. Closing. And that deal I bought for 10 grand plus about 3 grand in cost, kind of 13 grand. I sold it for just under 40,000, and I cleared over $25,000 on it. Awesome. I could have made a lot more, quite frankly. But I just wanted to get a deal done. And in fact, that particular builder has been a good contact. He's on my buyer's list. He's eager to look for anything that if I get something in a subdivision, he wants a shot at it. So after I sold it to him and closed, we went to a coffee shop nearby, and I said, look, because he was curious if I could get him more lots. I just laid out what I'd done. I'd paid, told him how much profit I had. I made about 25 grand on it, and realistically, he had about 25 grand equity in the lot after he bought it. And I said, Mike, we're kind of in the same position. I said, you're 25 grand ahead, I'm 25 grand ahead. And just based on being forthright with him, he's been a good go-to guy since. And so that was the first deal. And you get a deal like that, it makes it a lot easier to say this land deal is going to go. Your wife, who was kind of curious about it, goes, yeah, this guy's not an idiot after all. That was a good first deal.
That's so cool.
But it really didn't follow your method, And so I got started that way. But this is one that I said, I'm gonna try this.
What I really like about that is the way you made that deal happen. It involved you actually calling the sellers, and then you also called the buyer. Like, you actually got on the phone and you made it happen. You didn't just send a bunch of blanket mail out to everybody and just say, well, it's your job now, come to me. You really sort of made the deal happen. And something I appreciate about your insight, just every time I hear from you, is you're somebody who cares about the details and the facts and getting things right and making things happen and putting things together. And I hear from lots of people who they'll dip their toe in the water, they'll try something, they're not overwhelmed with the amazing results, and they expect me to fix the problem for them. But you, it's I didn't hear from you through any of this stuff. You just figured it out on your own with a little bit of help from, I'm assuming, reading my blog or some other resource out there. And
a lot of reading your blog and just saying, okay, see what Seth's doing, see what some other people that respond are doing. Yeah. And part of it is just leaning into discomfort. You can sit on the sideline, or you can do like Matthew West says, and just do something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just got to be just do something.
Absolutely.
And so, and I'll tell you, I know there's a lot of folks that look to kind of automate this process, and I think that's great. Mm-hmm. Where I've had my success is just spent a lot of hours working, looking, researching, and so I'm probably not efficient at it, but I've been reasonably effective in the last 18 months or so. And so someday I may get into the mode where I do a lot of mailers and I get the responses come in, and I don't have to, low maintenance kind of thing, make a low offer and send them something and never talk to them kind of deal. And so, someday when the other thing isn't working, I'll pick that up and try it. I don't think it's bad. Mm-hmm. It just hasn't been the way I've approached it.
That's really interesting. That'd be a great conversation, the battle between efficiency and effectiveness. You can be really efficient at getting nowhere. It's I know in my first year, it was a year of discomfort, like you said. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff I did not know, and lots of time calling people, lots of time just struggling through questions that nobody was going to answer for me. I just had to figure out the answers myself. And that's, I think that's the kind of the trademark of somebody who is going to get somewhere, somebody who's not afraid of that kind of discomfort, and they're going to do whatever it takes to kind of figure that out and get to the next step. So that's very cool. I'm curious, I know you said you've used Agent Pro 24/7. That's a tool, I mean, I've heard really mixed reviews on it. I know I've used it sporadically in the past. It seems like the, like maybe the county or the market you're working in, depending on the data they have. I mean, it's definitely not a perfect service by any stretch, but it can work. It's kind of like a luck of the draw thing, which I don't like, but it's just,
I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against Agent Pro 247. I think it's a good bit of information. But what I kind of came to the realization is that they're getting their information from the same place I can.
Yeah.
If I'll do a little bit of work, and that's doing some Google search, calling the county assessor, the county tax office, and patiently going through what you're really looking for. Because if you're not careful, you'll get a delinquent tax sale list, and you can get that online usually and find out which 15 properties are going to sell next month. And that's not what I want. I want the 1,500 properties that are past due that haven't gone to sell yet, or the ones that a lawsuit's been filed on, and someday they're going to sell. And so, I probably subscribed to Agent Pro 247 for close to a year, and a number of months I didn't use it at all. And finally decided, I'm going to not use that. There's been times I've thought about going back to it, but what I really do then is just contact another county and get another list. And the cost of the list from counties varies so much, from $0 to $600, and the ones that are $600 I walk away from. But I'll tell you, I'm blessed to be in a county where the resources are just unbelievable. The county I'm in and a couple of counties around, but important things are, can you get the list online, either through an FTP site or something like that? And yes, does the county have a good assessor site where you can go do property searches and find out details behind the property? The best thing is if not only does it show you, size, values, owners, if it has any deed history. So then you can see the last 2 or 3 transactions. So if you want to jump over to the county clerk's site and do some title research, you can. The county I'm in, I can go find online scanned copies of property records back to the 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so I mean, that's fabulous. It's got a great GIS site, so you know you got a property up, looking on, you can click on map, and you can see where it's physically at if you want to go look at it or take a look at it through, you know, Google or something. And so that helps a lot. And I recognize the county and some of the counties around me, you know, are just a blessing to me. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't gone very far from home. I can probably, you know, furthest away is probably 3 hours, and that's a town that my son happens to be going to college in, so I'm there quite often. But aside from that, I've been fairly close to home.
Okay.
Cool. And so I've pretty much quit buying lists. Mm-hmm. Just get the list from the counties.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
That's a mixed bag, of course.
Yeah.
You know, get them all different sizes and shapes.
I get a lot of leads from my website these days, but I mean, like, if and when I do get lists, I'm pretty much always going to the county as well, simply because, like, and part of the reason for that is because I know which counties can give the list to me in the exact format I want. I know what I'm going to get from them. Yep, whereas, like, if you're like just cold calling counties and you don't know who you're talking to or what's going to happen, and that's kind of how it starts in the beginning, because you just don't know. And it's
that you got to figure out which ones, you know, are easier, which ones are tough.
Yeah.
But part of it is, you know, and I recognize there's some that are tough and maybe there's some that are expensive. Mm-hmm. That means everyone else is going to have a tough time too. And so those are the ones that if I ever get to the point where I'm just not having, you know, the success I hope to have nearby, I may go back to them and say, okay, I may have to drive over to the courthouse. I may have to go to the tax assessor's office and bring donuts and coffee. Yeah. But you know, if I can crack that nut, there may be a gold mine there. I haven't done that yet, but I haven't written them off either.
Yeah, I know I've had some counties that just gave me like terrible lists, but I took the time and got through it, and I don't know if that's why, but the results were amazing. So I don't know. It's hard to just say don't do counties that make it hard, because I don't know. There's usually something there, but I mean, if you're aiming for easy, then I don't know. There's just kind of different trade-offs that go with an easy list versus a hard list. And so it sounds like you've been doing most of your stuff in a pretty, you know, concentrated market around where you're living.
Yeah, I've pretty much any property I've bought, I could drive and see on a Saturday or, you know, maybe an evening or something. I recognize there may be lots of opportunity out of state. I wouldn't say that I'm afraid of doing that. I just haven't done that yet. I've bought from a lot of people that are out of state. Mm-hmm. It's all been, you know, probably within 3-hour drive of where I'm at.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've been working on this, trying to put together some sort of a course on how seller financing works across the country. And just from doing that, like, just seller financing in every state is so different. Like, there's different types of contracts you use. The foreclosure process is different. Like, it's just a nightmare. like there are a lot of benefits to picking one state and understanding how that state works front and back. Even 2 or 3 states, but like the second you open it up to like every state everywhere, it's like you can do that, but there's a lot of just stuff you have to know if you want to fully take advantage of everything those areas have to offer. So
I don't mean to be boastful, but I've been fairly successful doing exactly that. Yeah. And so I'm going to spend the time, I'm going to try to learn these few counties around me, you know, who are the contacts, how do I close a deal, and try to do that well with kind of the time I have, you know, when I'm not working full time, to do those deals. And I just haven't gone out of state. I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that. There may be a lot of folks that are able to have a lot of success doing that, but I just haven't.
Now, in terms of getting your property sold, is there? Sounds like you are not afraid to get on the phone and find your buyers and use your buyers list. Is there any other method you've been using that's been successful for you?
The most successful thing to me is actually when I kind of have an idea who the buyers are already. Like the first one I bought, I drove around that subdivision and said, who are the builders? There's some houses being built there. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to be buying lots. And the developer was selling the lots for $75,000 to $80,000. In fact, the builder that came to me, what he told me was he had 2 lots that he was supposed to be buying a verbal agreement to buy. The developer called him back and jacked the price up on him because of demand. And he and they parted ways there, and it was a little disappointing. So I think he was a little bit happy to get a great deal on a lot and be able to go and, go to the homeowners association there, the architectural committee, and say, hey, I got plans, I got a lot I want to build, and just snub his nose at the developer. So I think that happened. But then what I did on a few deals later, and I did 3 more deals in that area, and it doesn't follow the method that you've advocated at all. But what I did was I said, I got a builder that wants lots in this area, and he doesn't want to deal with the developer. So I went and I found all the vacant lots. And I went one by one on the tax assessor's site, which isn't automatic and easy. I said, okay, which ones are out of state? Which ones have owned them for 5+ years? Which ones are either behind on their taxes or kind of slow pay it? And if I go to the tax office, I can see payment history. And you can see the folks that pay their taxes in November or December, the folks that pay them January, February, March each year. They pay them with kind of slow pay. Sure. And so I just started calling them. I probably called another 15 out-of-state owners in that area, and ended up being able to buy another 3 lots and sell them to builders there. Not the same builder. He was interested, but he didn't offer the best price. But I've sold some others to him, and so that's a completely different strategy. But what I thought was, I got a builder that wants lots. The other builders that do, I might as well go find lots to sell to somebody I already know that's going to buy. And so in doing that, I made some contacts with a number of builders, because builders were building in that subdivision, but they were also building in others. The guy I sold the first lot to, he had mentioned another subdivision. He said, hey, I've been looking for lots in that area. What I found was these smaller builders, they have a hard time competing with the big nationwide builders. Those big builders will go in and they'll buy 10 or 20 lots from a developer. And guess what? When the small guy comes to buy lots from a developer, you tell him, go away. I can sell them to the big guys, or they jack the price up like this guy did. So I thought, there's something there. So I've sold to 5, I guess, of these smaller builders that are looking for lots and happy to get them. And they'll pay close to market value, quite frankly. I always sell for a little less than that, so I want them to think, I got a great deal with Karl, and I'll answer the phone with Karl. Sure. But so, that was kind of a niche within a niche, if you will. And I've done that in several subdivisions around here. And when you've got a buyer waiting, you can buy for 80% of market value and sell for 90%.
That's a game changer. That's a big deal. That is so cool, man. I've known of a few people who have done that, contacting builders, but it's kind of like few and far between. It's not like a big thing I hear about a lot, but it sounds like that's like your bread and butter. And
well, I've done 5 or 6 of those, and kind of told you the magnitude of the numbers ranging from 10 to 20, 30 grand a deal, and you do 5 or 6 of those, it makes a little money over time. I'm not, it may be a number of months in between, but it's worked out well. And so you can imagine then I've started looking around, driving through subdivisions, saying, okay, what's this subdivision look like? Do I see lots? Going on the county website and seeing if I can find lots that I may be able to find buyers on. And I did 2 lots in a subdivision that's literally right next to where I live. And I chased those sellers for over a year. And one Sunday evening, drove out to their house with a letter that I could leave if they weren't there. Managed to talk to a lady whose son wanted to be a builder, but I don't think he ever really will be. But that's how they come across these 2 lots. Sure. And talked to her a while and didn't hear from her for 6 months. 6 months later, they called and said, "Hey, would you still want to buy those 2 lots?" Did the deal, and I made a little over 10 grand a piece on the 2 lots.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So. It's one of those kind of deals that I think the relationship and the contacts matter, and you may write it off now, but you can go back to it, or they may come back to you. But not all my deals have been big. I've made $500, $1,000, $2,000 on some deals. Again, those that I can think of right offhand were areas where I kind of had the buyer in mind already. One of the deals I ran across a 2-acre piece of land that was an interior parcel in an area that actually was platted. It had streets platted and everything. Just no streets, just brush and growth.
I've seen a lot of those out there.
Big area with no fences in between, but a huge, probably 120-acre piece that was fenced off around the perimeter. And I ran across this one. It looked like it was going to go to a tax sale. A foreclosure suit had been filed on it. I could see that on the delinquent list. I managed to chase down the the owner, and they actually had two parcels, one in that area and then one a few miles away that was like a quarter acre dump lot. But anyway, so you can only sell both of them. I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And so bought them both. And in doing so, before I bought it, I looked at the owners of the land in that bigger space, and there were three people that had a number of lots in the area, and a bunch of people, 20, 30 people that just had one lot in the area. And reached out to those three folks. One of them completely blew me off. Another one sent me to their realtor, and I've talked to that realtor off and on. But one person, the family had owned a lot of land in that area, and they basically wanted to buy all they could. So that 2-acre parcel that I bought for $5,000, I ended up selling for 15. And the guy says, I'd buy any of those lots you have. And so guess what I did? I started finding the owners of every one of those lots I could find. Yeah. And I've done about 10 of them, made between $5,000 and $2,000 each, and closed all but the first two myself. Interestingly enough, it was that 2-acre lot where I had that quarter-acre piece that I didn't know what to do with it. I put out on Craigslist. Put it out on Craigslist and got some response. And one of the guys is a guy that actually buys land, seller finances it, and he called. And I ended up selling it to him, dumping it at a price that was, I sold it to him for $5,000. He turned around and sold it for $25,000 seller financing. Wow. I don't know how I got that out of it. Amazing. And I've sold him 3 or 4 parcels since. But he self-closed it. He called me like on a Thursday. Said he'd buy it if he could, if the title work was good. And I actually sent him copies of all the title work because I'd done the work online, like I told. And on Monday, he showed up, at the building I'm in. My credit union's in the same building. And we closed the deal in 15 minutes right there in the lobby of the credit union. I said, okay, this is how self-closing works. Yeah. I like this. Yeah. And so then I went and found a lot of other small lots in there that I was able to sell to this landowner that was trying to pick up more of the property in the area. And I've self-closed them all on the buy and the sell side. Wow, and so, I can make $5,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 on a lot if you self-close it.
That's one of the things I love about self-closing. Like, if you can take the time to learn how to do it and do it efficiently, like it's a regular comment to hear people say, like, man, I can't believe how fast and quick that was. Like, that was just so easy. Yeah, it's when you do it with the title company, I understand why they do everything they do, but it's just a different thing when they're handling all their 20 times more documentation than we would really need to do. And that's cool, man. I'm really glad to hear you've taken the time to figure that stuff out. Have you been doing seller financing at all, or is that?
I have not done any seller financing, and I think I could on some of them. And right or wrong, I picked up a catchphrase somewhere that says I'd rather have a fast nickel than a slow dime. Yeah. And so I've got to subscribe to that. Yeah. I think over time that's where I want to move. If you think about building an income stream that comes in regularly that you don't have to do anything about, but I haven't as of yet. And some that I've thought if I had a hard time finding a buyer, that might be a way that I would do it, but I just haven't yet. I'm waiting for you to get that section of the course finished.
I totally get you. I've done plenty of seller financing in my time. It's just like, as of now, I've actually sort of moved further away from that just because I'm kind of like you. I sort of want my money now, and I've got other things I want to put that into. And again, just different trade-offs. Seller financing can be an awesome way to make passive income for a limited time because that always ends at some point.
Yep.
But
But I don't have a feel for that, and you may have, or others you've talked to, is how many people pay for how long, and then are you going repossessing the property and doing it all over again, and that's not necessarily bad. If you can sell the same property 3 or 4 times over a decade and make money, I just haven't got a feel for that. So it's something that if I were going to do it, I'd have to spend the time researching it on a limb and try one of them somewhere, and so maybe down the road.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a different subset of education you need. It's the whole repossession thing. It will happen. It's a thing you just have to be ready for if you're going to go down that road. And it can be, pretty straightforward, and it can be a really annoying process. So just kind of, if you want to mess with that or not, is a person's personal preference, I guess. So.
Like I said, there's one contact that I made that I've sold just a handful of lots to that seller finances. I can go out and I know what he bought them from me for. I can go out and look and see when he files the deed of trust, at least how much he's financed. He may have sold it for more than that and got a down payment, how much he financed. and he's making really good money off the deals he buys from me, and I'm assuming the ones from others. So I purposely every now and then, once a month or so, I'll go, just search the county clerk's site, his company name, and just look for deeds of trust, and then go and see kind of what he's doing, and he's told me that he's looking for lots that are quarter acre to an acre that have road access, and he'll do it in any of the few counties around me. So that's one of those kind of guys you add to your builder list. Yeah. I'm looking at a property I have in mind. Is this something that he would buy, or would a neighbor buy? Mm-hmm. So you asked about how I sell or market. Mm-hmm. I've ran a few Craigslist ads, gotten pretty good response from them. Mm-hmm. But in those instances, I've always been able to sell to the neighbor, or sell to this guy that does seller financing, or builder or something. And so I haven't sold to someone that's contacted me on Craigslist. I've had a number of people disappointed that I'd already sold. Mm-hmm. And so I think Craigslist, at least in the area where I'm at, is probably a good method. Yeah. I haven't sold anything off my website, and I've got a website, and I think I posted the link one time and got some feedback on it. But what I found with the website, particularly with the builders early on, before I established a relationship, is it gave me some credibility. Mm-hmm. The guy that thought I was scamming him on the first deal, maybe just too good to be true. Mm-hmm. One of the things he told me, he said, I went out and looked at your website. It was well done. I said, this guy's put some time in it, and he's closing through a title company, so I shouldn't be losing any money. Mm-hmm. But that feedback said, the website's probably worth it. So even when I think I've got a known buyer, some builders or a neighbor or something, I'll put the property up on the website. Yeah, sure. And I'll send them an email, or when I'm calling them, I'll say, hey, if you want to see some more details of the property, go out here. Mm-hmm. They already know everything about the property. I just want them to know that there's some element of an operating business there.
Yeah, just the credibility aspect is a huge component. I mean, even if people don't stumble across it through Google, or even if that's not the actual mechanism that makes the sale, just having that there.
I'm not trying to direct traffic to it, through Google. More than anything, I'm directing someone to it if they're, if I've talked to them about it, and that's been helpful.
It sounds like, your buyer's list or builder's list or whatever you want to call it is, clearly it's been a pretty important and helpful part of your business. I'm curious, if you hadn't been willing to pick up the phone and call those people, would that list even exist? Is it pretty important to
absolutely not.
You really have to have a personal connection, and that's sort of when the power comes into play, right?
And I hate calling people, quite frankly. Yeah. But yesterday I spent a couple hours calling people on properties that I was looking at buying, trying to find them. And on the seller side, I think it's even more important. But because I know for a fact, the 2 lots I bought in the subdivision next to me, I know for a fact that they ignored emails, because I had good emails that didn't come back, and one of them was even associated with another tax business this guy had. I know they got my emails. I know they got letters, because I sent them certified with a return receipt, and I got nothing. So I just drove to their house. Because I can go on the Texas Secretary of State website for their business entity, and I can see who the officers are. By taking that information, who the officers are, and in fact, it also has phone numbers on there, and sometimes they're even cell phone numbers. But I knew who they are, knew what area they were in. I can go find their address, and so I just drove by one Sunday evening with a letter in my hand that I could leave if they weren't home, or if they didn't want to talk to me, I could at least hand it to them. Had a great conversation with the mother of the guy that owned the company.
Oh, cool.
And so that was a pretty uncomfortable thing to do.
Yeah.
I've done that several times, 3 or 4 times, just driven out to those were for folks that lived locally. Obviously, I wouldn't drive to California to somebody. But calling or being able to talk, I think if you can establish some element of rapport with them, you can have a lot better chance of buying a piece of property. So, yesterday, I got a deal that a guy committed to. He lives in California, almost to the eastern border of California. Got a piece of property in a nearby county that has got past due taxes on, and really take the taxes. Amount of money I can give him nothing. I offered him $200 for the property and to pay the taxes. And I've been talking to him for a while, but it's the phone conversations we've had. As it turns out, there is a high voltage power line that the Public Utility Commission has agreed the route. It's going to build through there, and he even got a letter from a law firm wanting to negotiate a right-of-way. And I asked him, I said, are you going to pursue this right-of-way thing? He said, no. He said, I'm not interested in the property. If you want it, you can have it. And so some of the other calls I made Saturday and left voicemails, obviously, was with the land guys for the power company. So So, and I got papers in the mail so that, to go to a notary in the area. We'll close the deal first part of next week, and I'll see if I can either sell it right away, lease it right away, or perhaps even just lease the land for them to use as a laydown area in this section. They're building a power line. Kind of a different use, but
Sure.
Just from the information of talking to him over the phone, he said, yeah, I get some things in the mail occasionally. One of them is this thing about a right-of-way. He said, I don't know if that makes the land useless or what. Well, it might eventually, but the power company might be interested in.
Sure.
So we'll see. It's a different one. It's a risk, but
Yeah, absolutely.
we're the amount to about $1,200. I'll risk that.
It's funny when I look at like all the guys that I've known in my career, I guess both in real estate investing and in banking and just other places in life. The guys who like really do well in sales and that kind of thing, like they're not afraid to pick up the phone and do things that would make a lot of people uncomfortable. And it sounds like you've learned the virtue of that.
I don't know that it's comfortable, but some of us, okay, this afternoon I'm going to make 10 calls. I'm going to make X number of calls. And what I'll do, during the week, if I get home late of an evening, I'm not going to call somebody. But I put together my to-do list for the weekend, and I'm going to call John Doe and Susie Q, and I've got, from my internet searches, a list of 12 possible phone numbers for Jane Doe. I'm going to call all 12 of them, see if I can find. And some of them are clearly mother-in-laws and father-in-laws, and so you call, and it's like, I'm trying to get a hold of Susie Q. Internet search said you might be a relative. You know how I can get a hold of them, or could you pass along some information for me?
Sure.
And so, and quite frankly, the people on the other end of the phone, there's an awkward moment at the first thing they want to know is, how did you find me, and why are you stalking me? and but once you get past that first few minutes, it's amazing the things people will tell you. So, I told you that area that I bought the first lot, and then I subsequently bought 3 more lots. 2 of them I bought from the same owner, a pharmacist in California. And I ended up getting an old phone number of where she rented a room when she first moved. And it was a lady who was probably Asian descent because her English wasn't good. But we had enough of a conversation that I got a new phone number for the pharmacist.
Okay.
And I called the pharmacist. The pharmacist says, well, how did you find me? And she said, yeah, I'd kind of like to get rid of those 2 lots. I'm tired of paying taxes on them. I'm never going to move back there. I'll sell them to you for what I paid for them.
Wow.
25 and 45. And both of them sold for 65.
Nice. That's very cool, man. It's I love how in this process, like, especially like with a successful deal on the buy and the sell side, like you're making everybody happy in the process. Like you're making the seller happy, you're making the county happy, you're making the new buyer happy, you're making yourself happy. It's fun. It's fun to do those kind of deals.
And one of the most important relationships, I think, is probably with the county or the law firm of the county, because these counties that do the tax sales, most of them do them through law firms. They don't have the people in-house. And, I've got a relationship built where I can send an email to the law clerk there and say, hey, can you tell me the payoff on this? And they'll give me all of the costs, all of the fees, the taxes and everything. She'll tell me if anybody else has been calling interested in it, just because I built a relationship with her. On 3 different instances, I've had her call and say, Carl, I know you don't do houses, but I was talking with a lady on the phone. She's in a nursing home. She's got a house that's going to go to tax sale. She'd really like to sell it. Do you know anybody that buys houses? I've got a friend from church that's just started getting into real estate. He took a severance package from an oil company when they offered it. He's a stay-at-home mom now, and he's buying houses and renting them. And he's bought 3 of these houses that she's given me a lead on. And so, just the relationship matters. And, if there's something that pops up, say, hey, Carl, I know you're interested in this property. You called me a while back. It's going to go to foreclosure next week. Don't know if you're still interested in it. That tells me if I'm interested, I need to get after it. Also tells me when and if I find the owner, I can tell them, do you know that there's a lawsuit been filed against you for this?
Yeah.
That gets their attention. And they go,
it does.
what? And I can send them a copy of the court record for the lawsuit and say, hey, you don't want to do anything with this property, you don't want to lose it, have it foreclosed on, I'd be willing to buy it and give you a little bit of cash. So that relationship there is amazing. There's a little diner just down the road from there. On a couple of different instances when I'm going to the law firm there to talk about something, I stop in and I buy 4 gift cards for about $12 each, because you can get lunch for about $10 to $12 there. And there's 4 people in that office. And I go by and I say, hey, I appreciate all the help you've been giving me. By the way, can you help me with this?
Sure.
and get all the help I need.
Wow.
So part of it is just building those relationships and not being
Definitely.
afraid to ask questions.
I'm curious. It sounds like the business has been pretty successful for you so far. Do you have some long-term plan? You just kind of do this as a hobby, or do you want to retire on it, or what?
Well, I'm blessed to have worked for an oil company for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
One of the few guys around that still have a pension plan,
Oh,
a
sure.
typical pension plan,
Mm-hmm.
and so that'll be my primary retirement. And quite frankly, it's probably something that I do as a business, more like a business, once I retire. And
Sure.
then it's something I can do from anywhere. So if we decide to move to Florida, and we probably won't, but like a lot of retirees do, or so I could do it from anywhere. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that interests me now, and really I kind of got into it right now thinking I could learn the real estate business. I'd start with land, which seemed like an easier way to get in now. I could go to perhaps buying single family homes,
Yeah.
rehab, flipping, whatever. But so long term, I really don't have a long term plan other than I'll probably continue to do the land.
Sure.
I may do it in other areas. So if I didn't work full time and I could take a week or two and just drive to Arizona, for example. If I picked a county there, I could drive there. I could go meet people at the tax assessor's office, kind of figure out how the system and process works.
Mm-hmm.
And so that may be something that longer term. So at this point in time, it's not something that I'm going to do like you and quit my day job
Sure.
and do full time. I'd love to, but my risk profile is different.
It's a flexible business. That's another great thing about it. I did it for years just with my spare time, and that's where it can stop for many people. A lot of people are happy with that. There's nothing wrong with taking that approach. So, well, I mean, it sounds like you've already shared some really important, helpful tips and lessons here. Is there any other big, I don't know, aha moments you've had that you haven't already shared?
Kind of the biggest ahas I think we've already talked about. This self-closing thing, that was like an aha for me. The fact that you could actually do that and it's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've kind of learned is put yourself in a position where you can imitate what someone else is doing, like the gentleman that I sold to, and then he self-closed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's with us, we did that. Before he got out of there, we closed the deal in 5 or 10 minutes, spent the next 20, 25 minutes talking about how he did it, and then the seller, a little bit about seller financing without getting too much into his business,
Mm-hmm.
or, closing the first couple of deals with a title company, and just spending the time with the closer, asking about how different things work, what's the cost, and, so what if I decide to bring the deed already prepared? Will you guys take that? No, they want to use their law firm, of course, right? So the word's just right, but just understanding kind of the process there, and at the same time, that same title company, they frequently get gift cards to the restaurants around. Anytime I close a deal, buy or sell, I bring them to them. So we usually spend about 15 minutes closing and about 30 minutes just visiting, and I'm learning a wealth of information. And title company's the closer's supposed to be an independent, neutral third party. I can tell you, if you build a relationship, they'll still be independent third party, but they'll tell you a lot of what you want to know if you're not being unethical or anything. And so I typically insist on closing with that title company unless I'm going to lose a deal, because I know the deal will go efficient. If there's any kind of hiccups, they'll give me any hints of a red flag or anything. I've got one piece of property under contract that literally I've had it with them awaiting some legal things to be taken care of for now 13 months.
Wow.
I don't know if it'll ever close. If it will, I'll double my money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll make 50, 60 grand profit on this lot. I've got $250 setting as earnest money with them. It may sit there for another year.
Mm-hmm.
If the seller, it's one of these kind of deals where, the owner's died, there's 8 siblings, 2 of those have died, 1 of those have children.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the whole process of getting everybody together on a price and getting all the paperwork done. In the meantime, someone else has came in and claimed they bought one of the interests from one of the folks that has died. It's a person in the area that has taken possession of some property through adverse possession and done some other kind of shady things.
Mm-hmm.
The lawyer, actually. And so, she's filed an injunction against him and vice versa. I may never close that deal, but the title company's been patient with me. They just kind of hung on, and so part of its relationship. But anyway, that's more than you're interested in knowing.
Well, I mean, and these last couple questions kind of all go together, but has anything like sort of shocked you or surprised you in closing these deals? And I mean, if so, do you have any big words of advice for people who are just starting kind of getting into land investing, or people who have been maybe struggling at it and not finding the right results?
One learning, I don't know if it's a shock or anything, but a big aha, but if I thought about it, it made sense. If you're the one writing the contract on the buy side and sell side, there are a number of things that you could put in there that people just accept. For example, the 2 lots I bought in the subdivision next to me, the country club charges about $2,000 to transfer the certificate. Homeowners Association charges about $600,000. When I bought the lots, I put in the contract the seller pays all of those transfer fees. When I sold them, I put in the contract that the buyer pays those. The deal to the builder was a good deal, and he was okay with that. And so that was $5,000 profit, between about $2,500 on the buy side and $2,500 on the sell side. But there's lots of other areas, whether it's the cost of title insurance, cost of a survey. If you're writing the contract, depending on if it's on the buy side, you've got a great deal and you're paying all the closing costs, that's one thing. But if you're selling it, and especially, if you work with a title company, you can write the contract however you want. And there's been a number of times with the title company I work with, the closer will call me and say, okay, Karl, make sure I understand how you've written this contract. So typically, the seller will pay this, but it looks like in your contract you've written it the buyer pays. Is that right? That's correct. I've walked the buyer through the contract, and that's what it is. It's another $200 or $300 in that instance or something. And so, this business of being able to do your own paper, and I know you know that, and you've got a lot of templates and all. You go out and hire lawyers to write contracts and lawyers to walk you through processes, and there's probably a time and a place for it. But if you do that, be sure you, going in, have an understanding with the lawyer that you want them to do this, but you want to learn what they're doing. And ask a lot of questions, and if they're not willing to do that, go to another lawyer. The other thing that amazes me, I guess, kind of the aha, is that there's a lot of resources out there with the internet. There seems to be a lot of people that just want this all to come easy, you want it to be handed to them. And you've got a wealth of information on your REtipster site, more than anybody else. And then if someone subscribes to the course, literally just walks people through. And I don't mean to be negative to any of the fellow people on the forum or anything, but there are times when I just say, just go out and learn that, do it, call, ask. Don't have Seth do the deal for you. Seth would do the deal, he would be making a profit. And so part of it is just kind of go do it. And don't go do it on something you're going to have to pay $60,000 for the lot and hope you turn around and sell it and make a profit. Do it on something you're going to pay $1,000 for. Kind of learn the process. Ask questions of folks on the forum and the blog to get hints and all, but don't ask them to do the deal for you.
Actually, I've gone back and forth with that in my mind, just struggling through how to think through it. Like in some ways I hear that kind of feedback and it's like, oh, I'm not doing a good enough job explaining this for people. And on the other hand, it's kind of like what you said, where it's like, maybe people need to just like take it into their own hands and take the initiative and figure it out. Because like there's so many different variables, like so many different things that can come into a deal that change how you should handle it just a little bit. That doesn't match my exact, step A, step B, step C. So it's tough. I mean, my goal is always to sort of explain things like I'm talking to a fifth grader, just like really making it as simple as possible. But in the end, like a person's success comes down to their ability to or their willingness to just say, I am going to figure this out. Whether the directions are there or not, I'm going to make it happen. And it sounds like you've definitely grasped that pretty much from day one. And that's what's made you successful.
Part of what I've seen with the folks that are on the forum, you can see when they started out and they've asked a few questions on. Then you can see when they've done a deal or two, and then they just take off, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's don't get paralyzed by all the analysis or the fear of doing. Go ask questions. Go do something. I don't mean something stupid, but go do something. And it may cost you a few $100s or a few $1,000s to learn that. You may buy a property for $1,000 that you were hoping you could sell for $5,000, and you end up selling it for $750, and you net lost $250. But you probably learned a lot more than if you were to hire a guru to walk you through a deal. And so,
and that's
and I don't know if that's harsh, but that's just
it is what it is, And I think that's something that I feel for a lot of people when they're getting started, because like I know it and they know it, that like a big component to their success is to be able to experience a win early on. Like, doing a direct mail campaign, finding a good deal, closing it, selling it, and making a huge paycheck from it. Like that is a big deal in terms of.
It's a lot easier to do the second one.
Yeah, it is. And for a lot of people, like they struggle to find that first one, and it makes them think, well, this just must not work because I can't find it. And it's, I don't know what the secret formula to that is. I know with my first few deals, I mean, I called them big wins at the time, but I was making like maybe $1,000 or $2,000, and to me that was a huge deal just because I saw that it worked. And it's I don't know. I mean, to some extent, I think the reason that happened was because I had a similar mentality to yourself, where it's like if the answers were there or not, I was going to get there. I was gonna figure it out.
So maybe what's the definition of the win on that first deal? Is it break even and have done a deal and be comfortable with the next one? I got comfortable talking to some folks. I got comfortable talking with a title company if it was, or I got comfortable closing a deal myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't lose my shirt. I only went in, if I had to give the property away, maybe I lost $1,000, but I bought it and sold it and broke even. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a win on the first deal. Yeah. I'm fortunate to do much better than that on the first deal. But when I went into it, that was my mentality, was if I can find a deal and I can do the deal, mm-hmm. and not have any more at risk than other couple of $1,000s, and I learned from it, and I either learned that this is not for me, mm-hmm. or I know how this works, I know what I need to do different. That's a win. Mm-hmm. So part of it, I think, is defining the success on those first few deals, and not getting caught up in the fact that there may be some folks out on your forum that have got some great success going, and say, if I don't do that on the first deal, then it's not a success. But that's not at all the case, mm-hmm. Because part of it is just kind of learning this thing by doing, mm-hmm. and so I've talked to a few folks. Some of them have talked to you. There's a gentleman that lives up the road in College Station from me that I talk to quite often, and I tell him, part of it is just getting a deal done so you're comfortable with it, and so if you're going to try to make 10 or 20 grand, have that be your goal for the third or fourth deal. Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to talk about. I have no other questions unless you want to add anything else, but I really, really appreciate you being willing to share your expertise and your advice and your experience. I've gotten a lot out of just hearing your comments to people's questions in the forum, and I'm really glad to have you as a reader and as part of the community. And man, if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know.
I'm appreciative of the forum of just your blog site to start out with, but particularly the forum and the lessons you've put out there. I go back now and then and go, I need to reread that one so that I don't forget those nuggets that are in there. And so I think the forum is just one of the greatest things out there for somebody trying to do the land, because you just don't have that kind of dialogue in any other space that I've found. So is there anything I can do to help you?
No, man, you've done more than enough. It's just glad to have you as somebody to interact with, and thank you very much.
Great. If you're ever down in this area of Texas, look me up. I'll
man.
Drive around and look at vacant land or something.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Cool. Thanks a lot, Karl. I appreciate that.
You have a blessed evening. Thanks.
You too.
Bye.